everyone. Today we will explore a thought-provoking question: Is teaching a profession? So this presentation is based on the work of Kenneth A. Strike, a scholar who analyzed the nature of teaching and professionalization. So we look at what makes an occupation a profession and whether teaching fits that definition. So when you hear the word professional, what job comes to your mind first? So when we hear the word profession, we usually think of doctors, lawyers, or even engineers. So what about teachers? Are they considered professionals too? So instead of simply answering yes or no, Strikes wants us to analyze what a profession really means before deciding. So today we will try to understand what profession is, examine how professionalism relates to democracy, and evaluate whether teaching meets those standards. So let me read an introduction first from Kenneth's work. So is teaching a profession? This is an unprofitable formulation of the question. So the concept of a profession is an ideal type. An ideal type will consist of a set of characteristics that specifies what constitutes a pure case. So among the characteristics that are often supposed to define professions are the possessions of an esoteric knowledge base, a long and substantial amount of training required for entrance, the existence of a professional association that can speak authoritatively for the occupation, a code of ethics, significant professional autonomy, and a strong orientation towards service and client. So, we will discuss no that's characteristics tagsa-tagsa ano to na siya discuss para masabtan kung unsa ang pasabot o unsa yung significance niya ani sa kanang ma-consider na profession ang teaching. So the author is saying that asking is teaching a profession might not be the best question. Why? Because the word profession does not have a simple yes or no definition. So it is what scholars call an ideal type. So what is an ideal type? An ideal type means a perfect model or complete example of something. So it describes all the characteristics that a true profession should have, even if no job perfectly fits all of them. So according to this ideal model, a profession usually has first is the specialized knowledge. It is the knowledge that ordinary people do not have. Example, doctors understand complex medical science. So dili tanang tao nakahibaw sa medical science, only the doctors. So the second one is the long training. So many years of study and preparation before entering the job. Example are the lawyers who study law and pass the bar exam. And the third one, professional association. It is an official organization that represents and regulates the profession. Example, medical associations for doctors. So the next one is the code of ethics. So it is the clear rules about right and wrong behavior in the profession. So example is that teachers must treat students fairly. And then the next one is the autonomy. So it is the freedom to make decisions without too much outside control. So example, a doctor decides the best treatment for patient. And the last one is the service orientation. So the goal is to serve and help others, not just to earn money. So instead of simply asking if teaching is or not a profession, the better question is how closely does teaching match these characteristics? So teaching has many of them. So the teachers study for years, pass licensure exams, follow ethics, and aim to help students. So however, teachers may not have as much as independence as doctors or lawyers because they follow school policies and government rules. That is why the issue is not black and white. So teaching may not perfectly fit the ideal type of a profession, but it shares many important features. So let me read the second paragraph. So such characteristics will be fully exemplified only by a few paradigm cases. So the usual paradigm cases of professions are fee for services, occupations such as medicine and law. So most cases of professions will lack some of these characteristics or possess them in lesser degree than these paradigm cases. So this will be called the quasi-professions. So teaching will be a quasi-profession since it will have some characteristics of a profession but will have them at lesser extent than the paradigm cases of professions. So what do we gain by trying to decide if teaching really qualifies as a profession? Why not focus instead on a description of the characteristics that occupation does have or should have? So for you to better understand, so let me explain it in simpler terms. So the author is saying that only few jobs perfectly show all the characteristics of a profession. So these are called the paradigm cases, meaning sila ang best or unclear examples of a profession. So ang most common example ani is medicine and law. So, mao ni sila ang mga jobs nga gitawag og fee for service occupations, meaning people pay them directly for their services. Like for example, magpa-check up ka sa doctor, musik, kag legal advice sa lawyer. So, mo na sila gitawag og paradigm cases. So, kani nga mga job na ni sila is specialized knowledge, long and strict training, strong professional organizations, high independence in decision making because they strongly show all the ideal characteristics kani sila ang consider nga best example of professions. So, however, most other jobs do not completely meet all these characteristics. They may have specialized knowledge, training, independent, but not as much as doctors or lawyers have. Mo ni sila ang gitawag og quasi-professions, meaning almost profession but not fully. So that the author says teaching is a quasi-profession because teachers have training, teachers have license, teachers follow ethics, teachers serve the students. But teachers may not have the same level of independence or authority as doctors or lawyers. Like for examples, and teachers may follow sila ang government curriculum, school policies, teachers are supervised by principals or administrators. So, nagyapon sila gi-follow unlike sa doctor and lawyers. So, finally, nag-ask ang author, instead of arguing, is teaching really a profession or not? Why not focus on what teaching actually has and what it should improve? So, only only jobs like medicine and law perfectly fit the idea of profession. So, other jobs, including teachings, have many professional traits but not at the same level. So, that is why teaching is called a quasi-profession. Instead of debating the label, we should focus on improving the qualities that make teaching professional. So the third paragraph is about professionalism and democracy. So I begin with the two assumptions. The first is that central to the idea of a profession is the relationship between a guild and an esoteric body of knowledge. So the relationship involves authority and legitimacy. The guild claims authority over the work of its members. So it will seek to set standards for competent practice, set educational standards, determine membership, judge malpractice, and gain autonomy from interference in practice by the non-initiated. So the author says he has two main assumptions about professions. So let's discuss first the first assumption. So it is the profession equals the group plus the special knowledge. So a profession is built on two things. First is the guild or a group of professionals. The second one is the esoteric knowledge. So it is the special knowledge that ordinary people do not have. So let's define what is guild. So a guild is simply a professional group that controls and protects its field. For example, doctors have medical associations, lawyers have bar associations, teachers has also professional organization. So this group has authority, meaning they have the power to set standards, decide who can enter the profession, set education requirements, punish malpractice, and protect their independence from outsiders. So the common real life example is that you cannot just say I want to be a doctor today. You must study medicine, pass the exam, and be approved by a medical board. So, muna siya example sa guild nga nag-control sa ilang profession. So, in short, the first assumption is a real profession controls its own work through their expertise or the expert knowledge. So, the second assumption is that the professionalism is a form of governance and accountability. As a form of accountability, professionalism is in competition with other forms of accountability, especially free choice and democratic control. So, free choice protects consumers of a service by allowing them to choose those whom they believe they provide the desired quality of service. So it subjects practice to market discipline. professionalism competes with the consumer sovereignty and that professional licensing restricts market availability. So the second assumption is about professionalism is a form of control. So the second assumption is that professionalism is a way of managing or controlling work. So it is a form of accountability. But the important part is that professionalism competes with other forms of control, especially the free choice and the democratic control. So when we say free choice, so it means customer decide. So example, if you don't like one barber, mangita kag laing barber. So if ti ka ganan anang restaurant, then dili na kamudong adto mangita kag laing restaurant. So the market disciplines bad service because people will not pay for it. But in professions, this is limited. Example, you cannot choose someone who is not licensed to perform surgery even if they are cheap. So ato jud ka sa kanang balag mahal basta kay na license and kanang expert. So licensing restricts who can offer the service. So magmatter jud ang license. So in the democratic control or the government control means ang government or public mao'y maghimo sa decision. So example in teaching, ang government nag-set sa curriculum. Ang school board makes education policies. So malimit ang independence sa teacher. So the conflict here is that professionalism says we are experts, so let us decide. Ang free choice pod nag-ingon, let consumers decide. Ang democratic then moingon sa dog, the public and government should decide. So these three systems sometimes mag-compete sila with each other. So the conflict here is that professionalism says we are experts, so let us decide. So the free choice says let consumer decides. And also the democracy says the public and government should decide. So usahay kaning three systems magkumpit sila with each other. So if i-apply to siya sa teaching, if teachers are true professionals, they decide how to teach, they control the standards, they judge other teachers' performance. But in reality, ang DepEd man ang mag-set sa rules, mag-complain ng mga parents, then ang mga school heads, i-evaluate nila ang mga teachers. So teaching is partly professional but also partly controlled by the government and society. So the author says that the profession is a group of experts who control their work through special knowledge. However, professionalism competes with the free choice and democracy. In teaching, teachers want independence but they are still controlled by government policies and public expectations. So the next paragraph is that profession's claims to authority over their work is justified by expertise. So the appeal is to Plato's principle, those who know should rule. Values other than expertise are more central to democracy. So democratic forms of government are justified by appeal to such ideas as equal rights and the consent of the governed. So democratic and professional forms of authority can be mixed in institutions. In our society, such mixtures are common. Moreover, no form of professionalism that seeks to dispense with democratic sovereignty is likely to succeed. In a democracy, professions will be legitimated by democratic bodies and ultimately accountable to them. Such autonomy and self-governance as they attain must be within a democratic framework. Nevertheless, the professionalization of an occupation requires that democratic authority be kept at arm's length. Otherwise, the notion that the profession is autonomous and self-regulating is mere fiction. So the author explains why professions are given authority. Professions say they deserve control over their work because of expertise. So this idea connects to the philosopher Plato, who said, "Those who know should rule." So this means people who have knowledge and expertise should make the decisions. Like for example, a doctor knows medicine, so sila mag-decide sa treatment. Then sa lawyer, sila kahibaw sa law, so they give legal advice. So we must trust them because they are expert. But lahi sad ang democracy. So in democracy, authority is not based on expertise. Nagbase siya sa equal rights, the consent of people, and public participation. So in simple terms, sa democracy, ang tanan na ay voice, dili lang jud ang expert. Like for example, ang citizens, sila ay nag-vote sa leaders. Parents, pwede nila makwestiyon ng school policies. Ang government, sila maghimo sa education laws. So, mixing professional authority and democracy. The author says in real life, we mix both systems. So example, in schools, ang teachers silang consider nga experts. Sila nag-decide on how to teach the lessons. Then the government decides the curriculum. School boards creates policy. So professional authority and democratic authority work together. So, ang important point here is that no profession can completely ignore democracy. So, dili na jud mawa ang democracy no sa tanang profession. So, if teachers or doctor try to say, we will not follow any government rules, that will not work in a democratic country, especially dili sa Philippines, no, which is a democratic country. So, that's because professions must still be accountable to society. Like for examples, ang doctors mo follow sila og health laws, and teachers mo follow sila og education policy. So, here's a catch. For a job to be a truly profession, it must have some independence. If the government controls everything teachers do, then teachers are not really professionals. If every lesson, method, and decision is dictated, then professionals' autonomy become fake, just an illusion. So wala na autonomy ang teachers. So the author says democratic authority must be kept at arm's length. So this means the government should not interfere too much in professional decisions, but professionals must still respect democratic law. So, if i-apply nimo siya sa teaching, at teachers decide saan niya pa-explain ng algebra, science. So, muguan siya unsa nga strategy ang mas nindot. But, the government decides that algebra must be included in the curriculum. So, sila ang mag-decide. So, balance ra. So, if too much government control, dili na pud autonomous ang mga teachers. Wala na sila yung freedom to make decisions professionally. Then if too much control pud sa teachers, wala na yung public accountability. So, two things to follow. So, the first is the principles that justify democratic authority and professionalism are different and competitive. Second, insofar as professionals control their work will not be controlled democratically. So, the practical result is that to the degree the teachers actually function as professionals, their decisions and their work will be beyond the immediate reach of the legislators, administrators, and the school boards. So, the author says two important things to follow from the discussion. The first point is that democracy and professionalism are different. So, the principles behind democracy and professionalism are not the same. In fact, they can compete with each other. So, the democracy is based on quality and public control. So, the people or the government na sila authority, while professionalism is based on expertise. So, experts control their own work. So, lahi ni sila nga idea. So, example, in democracy, the government makes school policies. So, in professionalism, teachers decide how teaching should be done. So, usahay no mag-clash ang kaning mga idea. So, the second point is more professional control is equals to less democratic control. So, if professionals control their own work, then the government or public cannot control it as much. So, in simpler terms, the more teachers act like professionals, the less politicians and school boards can interfere. So, ang practical meaning ani is, if we want teaching mahimo siyang profession, then we must accept the teachers na naa sila more independence, and that means less direct control from the politicians and the school officials. So, a successful argument for the professionalization of teaching must show that such diminishment of democratic authority is justified. So, the standard argument appeals to considerations of utility. Professional forms of accountability, when they are appropriate, are held to be superior to democratic forms because they yield better decisions and a higher quality of practice, and thus serve and protect the public interest or the interest of clients best. So note three things about this argument form. So the first one is it assumes that the imperative for democratic forms of accountability can be overcome by considerations of utility. And then the improvement of practice and gains in protection of the public interest must be sufficient reasons to prefer professional forms of accountability. So the author is saying that if we want to argue that teaching should be treated as profession, then we must prove something important. We must prove that reducing democratic control like government interference is justified. So what is the main reason? Ang reason is ang utility. Utility means usefulness or practical benefits. The argument says professional control is better than democratic control if it produces better result. So if so teachers make better decisions, teaching quality improve, students benefit more, then giving teachers more professional authority is justified. So the author says something very important. So this argument assumes that democratic control can be reduced if professional control leads to better outcomes. So the improvement of teaching must be strong enough to justify to give teachers more independence. So the second point is that a crucial element in the argument for professionalization must be that a knowledge base with suitable characteristics actually exists. So it is fundamentally the existence of a suitable knowledge base that legitimates the control of a profession over its work. Then finally, the knowledge base must play several roles in the practice of the members of the guild. So initiation into the knowledge base must account for both judgment and skill, but it also must account for the loyalty of the profession to the standards of practice of the profession and to the welfare of the client. So there are other requirements as well. So the author now explains another very important point. So if we want teaching to be treated as profession, then there must be really a strong and suitable knowledge base. So teaching must be built on real solid knowledge. That knowledge must justify why teachers control their own work. So if there's no strong knowledge base, then teacher cannot claim professional authority. So why is knowledge base important? So the existence of special knowledge is what gives a profession the right to control its work. Like for example, ang doctors control medical decisions because they understand medicine. Then, same goes sa lawyers, they control legal decisions because sila ang naka-understand sa law. So their knowledge gives them the authority. So if teachers want professional status, then they must show they have specialized knowledge in learning theories, child psychologies, assessment methods, and curriculum design. So the knowledge must do many things. So the author says that knowledge base must serve several roles. So it must guide judgment and skill. So that means teachers must use their knowledge to make smart decisions, to apply effective teaching methods. So example is that a teacher knows students learn differently. So they adjust their learning strategy for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. So that shows both judgment and skill. So the second one is it must create loyalty to the professional standards. So professional knowledge should make teachers committed to the ethical behavior, high standards, and the students' welfare. So example, a teacher does not leak exam answers even if pressured. Why? Because professional ethics and standards guide them. So the third one is it must protect the students' welfare. So the knowledge base should ensure teachers prioritize students' well-being. For example, a teacher who understands child psychology knows that public humiliation can harm a student's confidence. So they discipline privately instead of embarrassing the students. So the main idea here is that if teaching is a profession, then there must be a real specialized knowledge. So that knowledge must justify teachers' independence. So it guides actions, decisions, skills, ethics, and care for students. Without the strong knowledge base, teaching cannot fully claim professional status. So now we will proceed to the requirements for a knowledge base for us to understand better kung unsa ka importante ang knowledge base. So, in what follows, I shall sketch several standards for a suitable knowledge base for a profession of teaching. So, na siya criteria no nga makita na to sa screen. So, the first one is that something must be known. The knowledge base must ground practice. The knowledge base must be esoteric. The knowledge base must be the basis of evaluation of practice. So, the knowledge base must ground a profession of teaching. The knowledge base must provide the basis for loyalty to profession standards and client welfare. And the knowledge base must help specify what the work of teachers is and be the basis of a division of labor between the authority of the guild and the democratic or bureaucratic authority. And the last one, the knowledge base, must suggest how the kind of teaching done by professional differs from the other forms of teaching in the society. So now we will discuss the criteria one by one. So the first one is that something must be known. It means teachers' work should be based on verified knowledge, not just guesswork. So the ground practice. Knowledge should directly inform teaching methods and classroom decisions. So the next one is the esoteric. So the esoteric knowledge must be specialized, not common or trivial, distinguishing professionals from the lay people. Then the basis of evaluation. So professional competence can be assessed based on mastery and application of this knowledge. So the grounds of profession. So the knowledge base defines teaching as a distinct profession. Then the next one is the supports loyalty and client welfare. So it should fosters commitment to professional ethics and the well-being of the students. Then the next one is that it specifies work and authority. So it should clarify teachers' responsibilities and balances professional autonomy with democratic oversight. So the last one is that differentiates professional teaching. So it should highlight how professional teaching is distinct from informal or non-professional instruction in society. So in summary, if teaching is a profession, the task of working out a division of labor between the professional authority of teachers over their own work and democratic authority requires both a view of the nature of the knowledge base and the political interests involved. So this in turn requires a knowledge base that will support a coherent division of labor. So the author is uh, trying to say his main point. So he says if teaching is truly a profession, then we must clearly decide how power is divided between teachers and the government. So muna siyang gitawag og division of labor, meaning it has a clear sharing of responsibility. So what does this mean? So, if teachers are professionals, they should control certain parts of their work. But because we live in a democracy, the government and the public must also have same control. So, the final thoughts, an alternative vision of teachers as professionals. So, I conclude with an alternative vision of professionalism, one that takes subject matter seriously as central to the knowledge base. So, this vision depends on the notion that what teachers do most centrally is to represent the learned disciplines and the other similar activities to their students. So, they teach disciplines such as mathematics, literature, and science. They teach music, arts, and sports. Even at the most elementary levels, they transmit fundamental skills and values that are prerequisite to this task. So, if of course they do more than this, nevertheless, I want to suggest that we can best express reasons for granting teachers the status of professionals and reason for certain kinds of professional autonomy by seeing teachers as representatives of those activities which, in their fullest development, constitute the practice of learned disciplines. So the author uh, is trying to end by presenting a different way to think about professionalism in teaching, one that focuses on the subject teachers teaches the heart of their work. In this view, what teachers do most importantly is share the knowledge of specific disciplines with their students. So the teachers instruct in areas like mathematics, science, and literature. They also teach music, arts, and sports. Even in an elementary school, they pass on essential skills and values that prepare students for learning these subjects. So, of course, teachers do more than just this, but emphasizing the central role helps us understand why teachers deserve to be considered professionals and why certain professional standards make sense. So the main point is that teaching is about guiding students through a discipline, helping them understand it deeply, and showing them how to think and act within it. So according to Scriven sense, this view is duty-based in that it emphasizes an appraisal of those activities that are conceptually essential to teaching instead of focusing on identifying indicators of good teaching. So this view of a profession of teaching has two assets and four liabilities. So the first asset is that this view has the conception of a knowledge base that is likely to be able to meet the eight standards described above. So the second asset of this view is that it lessens tension between professionalism and democratic authority. So according to Scriven, also this approach to teaching is duty based. So this means focuses on evaluating the activities that are essential to teaching itself rather than just looking for signs of good teaching. So kaning idea of teaching as a profession na siya two strengths or assets and four weaknesses or the liabilities. So ang first strength niya is it provides a clear understanding of what teachers need to know or their knowledge base which can meet the eight professional standards nga na-mention earlier. So the second strength is that it reduces the conflict between being a professional and being accountable to democratic authority, making it easier to balance expert judgment with public oversight. So how about the weaknesses or the liabilities of this view of teaching? So first is that this view suggests that there is not a mere profession of teaching per se. Instead, teachers are members as many professions as their intellectual practices. So the second liability is that the view of a profession of teaching will tend to deprofessionalize teachers to the extent that they are not grounded in some intellectual practice. So the third liability of this view is that it is child-centered or student-centered. So its standards are those of the practices applied to instruction. So the fourth liability is that this view may seem to have the philosopher king problem. So teachers are supposed to have autonomy over those goods that are internal to their various intellectual practices. So, mo to siya ang four liabilities, no? So, the first one is that no single teaching profession. So, ang teacher, they belong to as many professions as there are subjects or intellectual practices. So, there isn't one unified profession of teaching. So, the second one is that the risk of the professionalization. So, teachers who are strongly connected to an intellectual discipline may lose their professional grounding. So the third one is delicious student-centered, not student-centered. So the focus is on the standards of the discipline, not directly on the needs or interests of the students. So the last one is that the philosopher king problem. So teachers are expected to have full autonomy over their subjects, which could create issues if there's no balance or accountability. And now we are down to our last paragraph. So finally, we may need to resist the temptation of treat teachers, professional standing as one of the bases of their status or social worth. So why not value teachers for what they do? Should we not esteem teachers because they faithfully care for our children and represent valued activities to them with integrity? So perhaps the need to contest the term professional speaks most clearly to the failure to value people in our society for morally appropriate reasons. So, finally, we should be careful not to judge teachers only by their professional status. Their true value comes from how well they serve our children and how honestly they teach important skills and activities. So, maybe the debate over the word professional highlights a bigger problem. Our society often fails to value people for the right moral reasons. So teachers' worth isn't just in their title, but in their commitment and integrity in guiding students. So that would be all. Thank you.